Hi, Stu. Well, we're into week 4 of home learning, and I hope you guys are doing well. So this week we're going to be continuing looking at USA versus China. This is also the first week that you guys are working on social subjects in a rota. So unfortunately, you won't have to hear my voice next week. You may be bummed out about that. You may be excited about that. I'm not really too sure. However, this week we are talking about the death penalty in the two countries, and we're also going to take a look at whether or not we think the death penalty should come back within the UK. So this week, like other weeks, you'll have 4 files, or you'll have a little bit more actually. So this week, a little bit different from other weeks. There's going to be a file on there for your video walkthrough. So you'll have your normal 4 files, and then you have an optional extension work. Since you guys aren't working on quite as much, some of you guys might feel like you want to do a bit more. Once I get this recorded, there'll be another document here that says week 4 video walkthrough like you've had for the other weeks. And then there's an extra section here that's going to be extension work, and that's optional if you want to do it. Maybe you have a bit of time since you're not working on the other subjects and you have some other stuff that you want to do, so there's some other tasks in there for you to do. But in the meantime, you have your PowerPoint, you have your write-on sheet, and these are these two things here. So they go together step by step. You see slide 1 here, starter test here. If you're on a computer, it makes it really easy to do. If you're not on a computer, it can be a bit problematic. And I understand that. So make sure whatever you've been doing to make this work, make sure you keep it going. If you only have the ability to show one of them, just take your answers down, put them in your jotter. But mainly the write-on sheet, this is why the write-on sheet's not something you have to turn in every week. It's because everybody's in different situations and everybody has different ways that they're going about doing things. Maybe the write-on sheet, the way it's formatted with all the questions and stuff like that, doesn't really work for you. Maybe you want to take notes from the PowerPoint, and you can kind of use the write-on sheet for a guide, or just take notes from the PowerPoint, because a lot of the stuff that's in the write-on sheet is also in the PowerPoint. So if you can't have them both open, that's fine. Which the main thing, that's why in social subjects we've only wanted the one turn-in task every week, because everybody's doing things in different ways. And that is okay. As long as you're doing it, we in the faculty are completely happy. Now, going through, we've got some starter questions, and I want you guys to talk to somebody at home. If possible, you may not be able to. Everybody's I'm kind of hard to access for my children sometime with work, and my wife is the same. So completely understand where you're coming from. But these are the questions that I want you to talk to somebody at home with. All right. So it's about the death penalty. So I want to know I'd like to know some of the things that you personally believe about the death penalty. Do you think it should be around? What crimes do you think deserve it? Could say certain things like murder or different things. You might also say none. Would there be an age limit for the death penalty? Would there be any people who would be exempt from receiving the death penalty? Is there anyone who basically you would say shouldn't get the death penalty no matter what? All right. And make sure you write down your answers. I am deleting that because that doesn't make any sense anymore. All right, so what we're going to look at, so if you are going to ask that, pause the video, come back to me. And yeah, so we're going to be looking at the use of the death penalty in China and the USA. And then USA, and we are actually not doing that. Okay, so basically you're going to go through and you're going to answer some questions. Okay, as you go through, you're going to take down bits of information. So the death penalty has some other names. The death penalty is also referred to as capital punishment, a death sentence, an execution. There's all sorts of different things that you can go through to describe capital punishment or the death penalty. Now, there's a lot of countries that still use the death penalty. So I want you to take a wee moment and maybe try and rank these. Which one do you think uses the death penalty the most? Which one uses it the least? Pause the video, rank them. You could write them down in your jotter. You could do whatever, but go ahead and rank them. Pause the video. 1, 2, pause, pause. Is it paused? Probably not paused. If it is pause, now you're just really annoyed that you hear me say pause over and over again while you're trying to listen to the next bit of the video. So basically, here you go. China is in the thousands. We don't know. We don't have access to China's records. China is also the most populated country in the world. Okay, so though you hear about the USA utilizing the death penalty, in comparison to some other countries, it's not quite as much. Now, this is from 2018. In the US, there's lots of people who are considered on death row, but there's not as many people who are executed compared to some other countries. But there are still quite a lot. In China, it's in the thousands, like I said. Iran is over 253. Saudi Arabia is 149. Vietnam is 85. And Iraq is 52. And it's important to note how many people live in China. So we're 1.2, 1.3 billion. I can't remember, and I should because that was from the last lesson. All right, in the US, still has quite a lot, but it is sitting at 23 to 25, right in that range. So in the 20s. So compared to some other countries, it's actually quite low. Okay, so in China, so that was where you can kind of go through and look at us. So as you're going through, you can answer these questions. In China, the death penalty is a bit different. So there's some questions you go through. So how long can you be imprisoned for? So you can get 3 months without trial, get denied a lawyer or family visits. So there's a lot of things that are a bit different from the rights that you may have in the UK or the rights you may have in the US. Okay, so basically you go through and you look at it. They also do this thing where they put them in a re-education program. And a re-education program is basically where they maybe have somebody who has more radical beliefs and they try to convert them into doing these other things. So they get beaten, brainwashed, get hard labor, and they get told if they start believing different things, then they might get to leave a bit early. So there are 55 crimes in China that will get you the death penalty. Some of them are corruption, embezzling, drug-related crimes, theft on a large enough scale, so if you steal a lot of stuff. And one thing that's quite common is mass executions. That means they may kill a lot of people. Now I'm going through this quite fast. If you're struggling or you want to spend a bit more time to get a bit more information, I'm kind of going through the main points because nobody wants to watch a 40-minute video of me talking. But make sure that you are looking at these a bit closer. So how many crimes are punishable by death in China? We've got that. Describe what can happen to a condemned person before they're killed. Ooh. Right. So this is a bus. It's an execution van. All right, so the execution van, so one of the things that could happen, that's what they would do is when someone is sentenced to death, they would use those organs to keep them from going to waste, I guess you could say. And so that is one of the things that can happen. If you're sentenced to death, you may have your organs harvested before they kill you. Or after they kill you, sorry, immediately after. So they would, but yeah, so that's an option that they kind of do. Okay, here are the same questions. So if you weren't using your write-on sheet, there's the questions. All the things you've had to do so far. And then the last thing, what sometimes happens to the bullet, I can't see, was it in here? There it is. Sometimes the bill for the bullet can be used to kill the prisoner is sent to the family. So the prisoner's family actually gets a bill sent to them where they have to pay for the bullet that killed their family member. That doesn't really sound that great. I'm just going to put in the USA off this because that was the first part. Even though I just added this, I'm kind of losing my mind here, guys. Lockdown 2.0. Okay, then next bit that we're going into, we're moving into the USA. I've kept this count going on the questions, all right? So you're just going through and getting a bit of information. So the death penalty has existed in the USA since it was founded. It was used across the board. In 1972, it was stopped. So they actually abolished the death penalty. In Britain, the death penalty has been abolished. It was in 1969. It was officially ended for murder. But in the US, they ended it in 1972. And then it came back in 1976. Okay, so the death penalty today, though, here's some questions that you guys would go through. All right, the same 3 questions here are the same 3 questions over there. And I'm trying to do that where it makes it a bit easier for you. So simple, go through, count them up. Now, there's some states that you won't know the name to. So some of the ones, the bigger states, like I think a lot of you guys, some of you guys may have even been there. This one down here is Florida. And this is the state that I'm from, which still has the death penalty. That one's Georgia, Texas, California. I don't want to go too much further because it's a bit embarrassing because I don't know a lot of the other ones. South Carolina, North Carolina, Virginia. But then if you look around, there's still quite a lot of states that don't have it. This is the state I was born in, Indiana. Okay, but you might have to go around and have a wee look. Nevada. Yeah, I'm going to stop now because I'm running out of ones that I can know off the top of my head. And that, like Oklahoma, yes. Yeah, so you may, if you're going to choose some of these, you may want to get some information on them. You might have to look them up. But yeah, and that's something you can do. Okay. Next, top 3 states. Okay, these are people who are currently on death row. Okay. Yeah, so currently, that doesn't mean that they do that many executions all the time. That means those are people who are sentenced to death. But remember, when we look at the chart, the US only carries out 25 or so a year. And if you look down here, you would think like, oh, well, California has that covered, like a whole lot of fold. So there's a lot of people sentenced to death row in America, but they haven't actually received it. Now, there's 5 methods of execution. So we're going to go through these. I'm going to be quite quick. You're going to be taking notes into here. If you're doing it on paper, just do a mind map. That's what you'd be doing in class if we had it the other way. All right, so there's 5 different methods. The first one is pause it. If you're doing this in your jotter, go ahead and draw your thing out so you have it all set up. Methods of execution. That doesn't look very good here. So I'm going to change that size because that looks terrible. There we go. All right. So the first one and most common is lethal injection. Okay, and so the way that they do that, you're just taking notes on these pretty simple, probably the easiest thing you can do is write the bold bits. This is the standard. Okay, they get 3 injections. The first one makes them go to sleep. The second one paralyzes their body, and the third one stops their heart beating. And they're usually dead within 7 minutes. This was actually quite controversial because a lot of the drugs actually to do this were coming from Europe not too long ago, and Europe stopped shipping the drugs to the US that were being used specifically to end people's lives, because in lots of parts of Europe the death penalty isn't legal. So yeah, so they weren't okay with supporting the death penalty in other countries. And that made it where pharmaceutical companies in America and stuff had to change the way that they were executing people for a wee while. All right, but most common form is lethal injection. The next one is the electric chair. Now they stopped using this quite a long time ago, or a while ago. For the most part, some of them still have it as an option, but like we said, the most common one is lethal injection. Okay, put a leather strap across the eyes and mouth. They soak a sponge and put it on top of their head to make the electricity go through their body, which actually makes it less painful. So the more electricity they can put through the body, the less painful it will be. They connect power cables to the body, and then next thing you know, that's the way that it goes. So yeah, take some notes on that. The next one would be nitrogen gas, and that is where they would put someone into a chamber, an airtight chamber, and they would go through and they would put some gas through, and there's different types of gas that they could use. The next one would be hanging. I'm probably going faster than you can write, but they would do that and they would weigh people specifically, and the whole thing was that they can get the weight right. It would make it where it could be quite a quick death that wouldn't be too bad. And then the last one would be a firing squad. This is another one, like we said, the most common one would be lethal injection, but this is a potential option. Okay? Right. So, there's the 5. Now, I want you, on your write-on sheet or on your jotter, that should be a 5 there, I want you to rank these the least humane, 1 being the least humane, and 5 being the most humane. Humane means like nicer. So if it's the least humane, then that means it would be like the worst method. All right, and a 5 would be the best. So if you think probably the easiest way, the most humane would be lethal injection, that would actually be a 5. And whichever one you thought was the worst would be a 1. Right? Then what I want you to do, this is your turn-in task for the week. All right? Basically, we've talked about the death penalty in China, and we've also talked about the death penalty in the US. So what I want you guys to do is have a wee look at the death penalty in the UK. And when you do that, here's some should resources that you can use. You're going to do a wee writing task. We're going to do a skills question. A type of skills question that you do if you decided to take this on whenever you're in S4 for a national. It's a kind of version that's it's in the style of a skills question, but it's going to help you out and ways to do that. Now, in this, I've got a bit of information here. So it's the UK ended the use of the death penalty officially in 1969. It's in it for a number of reasons, including person's right to life, it's cruel, it may not stop others, and they could have arrested the wrong person. Also, though, however, there are people who think it should be reinstated or brought back. They think the punishment should fit the crime, they could stop others from murdering, and yeah, so it's basically there's some people who think it's a good idea, the death penalty. Stop others from murdering and stops them from doing it again. Okay, now I've got some different resources, and you'll notice that they're quite different when you go and look at them. I got some should resources, which are things that you should do. So this is kind of the minimum, and when you click on that, they're both links to the BBC. When you click on this one, let's see, I can do this. When you click on this one, it brings you here. You see, these are some kind of bullet point type answers that are going to help you out. But yeah, so go through those and you're going to figure out which one works best for you. And you're ultimately telling me whether or not you think the death penalty should be something in the UK or you think it shouldn't. Here's the other one. This is your could source. You see there's a bit more detail where it gives you a bit more information about each of your options. Okay? Right. So yeah, so you're going to go through and see everything that you need to do. Now, with that being said, that's kind of a way that you can do your research. If you don't like the sources or you can't find your reason, that's fine. A lot of this is coming from you as well. You don't need to use this research. You can use your own view. Maybe there's certain crimes that you think are worse than others or something along those lines. Okay? And so remember, when you're doing this, your turn-in task, you don't actually do it on your write-on sheet, because you don't have to turn in the write-on sheet. Now I put it there, but there's also your turn-in task here. Okay, so you would use the space below to write your answer, and then you can turn this in, or you could do it in your jotter and send a picture to your teacher. Okay, so I'm going to shift over to this because we've went through all of our tasks. All right, so for your task, you're going to need this slide on the PowerPoint to complete it. All right. All right, so essentially, why do you think the death penalty should be brought back to the UK? back to the UK. Some people think the death penalty should be brought back to the UK, but others disagree. So here's a template that's going to help you answer this. All right, so I have chosen to reinstate or not reinstate. So this is normally quite a split thing. One reason I chose this is because. Right, so another reason I've chose this is because. So you get two reasons that support your choice. Then this is where it's a bit tricky, and you got to do the opposite. Although some people choose for the other option because, so let's say you chose, let's say you chose to reinstate the death penalty. So in this one, you would say, I've chosen to reinstate the death penalty. One reason I've chosen this is because the punishment should fit the crime. Right? Another reason I've chosen this is because it stops other people from doing it. Or you could choose to do a bit more research and have a bit more developed answer, which would be really good if you're able to do that. All right? Although, in this case, some people may choose the other option because they think it's inhumane. I would argue against this because if you commit a murder, maybe you lose your right, your human rights. Does that make sense? So you give a reason and then you go, you say why you disagree with it. Okay? Overall, I feel the death penalty is a useful tool, or I feel the death penalty is inhumane. So which one do you think? And then support it with the because. So we essay. So you basically got kind of like, it's not really an essay. You're looking at just answering through and going through some stuff. Okay? Right, if you have any questions, get in touch with your ST teacher, social subjects teacher, or post up a question on your team. But outside of that, I hope you guys enjoyed listening to me. I know my voice is absolutely brilliant. Granted, you probably disagree. Right, speak soon. Oh, last thing, actually, I'm just going to go through this. I might as well do it here. Well, I won't go through it fully, but I'll just show you guys what it looks like. So there's also a folder on here for extension work, and when you click that, I will have another walkthrough for you guys to do. Okay, so there'll be another file here that says walkthrough. Take care.